And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on episode 47. Topic segment. Things are going to sound a little bit different right off the bat. Just want to get that out of the way. Blue is not at home, so I am recording his audio through Discord. So forgiveness for the tinniness, because it will come through.
Hello, I'm here to spread my socialist beliefs. No, that was a joke from what was said before.
Yeah, so speaking of, there's the topic that I had, and it's something I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about on the podcast, but I've seen so many different people on the internet now talking about it that I just felt like I had to bring it up, and at least look into it a little bit further. There is a fairly large fan community around Lord of the Rings, I would say. People who have...
Lord of the Wings, like fat guy in KFC.
God damn it.
I am the Lord of the Wings.
The Lord of the Wings! Oh my god, that's what the fantasy persona of Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy. The Lord of the Wings.
We need to do like a kind of KFC jam where we sit down who can eat the most KFC wings, and they'll be the Lord of the Wings.
God.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Although really fucking gross.
But I mean, like, it's a series that is so completely embedded in the cultural zeitgeist. Like, almost just pretty much everyone's heard of it. Most people have at least seen the movies, if not read the books. And there are people who have dedicated entire academic careers around studying the books, and there are English majors that major in like Lord of the Rings, and fantasy literature in general, and they focus on Lord of the Rings. The humanities are a very strange place to me, like in terms of academia. But I bring this up, and this is something that has been floating around the internet. I've seen a few YouTubers talking about it, and I think the best way to do this is I'm just going to read this agenda. So There's a Tolkien Society, and it's just what it sounds like. Very hardcore people who have studied the works and know all of the lore and everything, and they love to talk and discuss and, I guess, fantasize. They have a summer event that is taking place on July 3rd and 4th.
Okay.
It's going to be taking place over Zoom, and apparently it will be live streamed to YouTube. So I may check this out just to see it, and you'll get an idea why. So, here is the program, the list of events, as it were. So on July 3rd, the first event, Gondor in Transition, a brief introduction to transgender realities in Lord of the Rings. Item 2, the problem of pain, portraying physical disabilities in the fantasy of J.R.R. Tolkien. Item 3, the burnt hand teaches most about fire, applying traumatic stress and ecological frameworks to narratives of displacement and resettling across cultures in Tolkien's Middle-earth. That was just buzzword salad. The Invisible Other, Tolkien's dwarf women and the feminine lack. It just projecting Indian.
Let's go through it. First of all, this sounds like you could easily replace Lord of the Rings with like World War II. It's just something that doesn't need. It's just not necessary. Like,
it's not about Lord of the Rings. It's about how can we squeeze modern day cultural buzzwords into Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. It just sounds stupid. All right, I'm just saying it sounds stupid. If Tolkien in the books, because I haven't read the books, actually said there were people in Gondor who were trans, which I very much doubt he did.
Yeah.
Is it like a theoretical thing?
But when I was thinking about this maybe, but this is what makes me think it's not. So, papers to be considered for the conference are not limited. Papers may consider, but are not limited to, representation in Tolkien's works, race, gender, sexuality, disability, class, religion, age, etc. Tolkien's approach to colonialism and post-colonialism. Adaptations of Tolkien's work. That one actually makes sense for this conference. Diversity and representation in Tolkien's academia and readership. Identity within Tolkien's works, and alterity. I don't know that word. I have a fairly, wide vocabulary. I have never heard this word before.
What's the word again?
Alterity. Alterity. The state
like altruism, but...
Wait.
Like altruism, but alterity?
No, it's the state of being other or different. Otherness.
Right.
Anyway, so it just the thing.
So we're gonna get Grundlfnurk, the disabled drag queen orc. It's gonna be about that kind of thing.
Hold on, here it is. On day 2, it starts off strong. Pardoning Saruman, the queer in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Saruman's queer?
That was kind of my reaction. Actually, beyond that, my reaction was, who cares? It doesn't matter if he was gay or not. He was, the perfect person, and then he got corrupted and then led an orc army to slaughter the trees.
Wait, you said Saruman, right?
Yeah, Saruman.
Yeah, okay,
he's the dude in the white cloak with the two towers,
wizard,
right?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that would make sense why he is, without family, I guess?
Maybe. But the thing is, I thought in the books, him and Gandalf and all the other ones were supposed to be, supernatural beings. The wizards weren't really of the world. I don't know. I've only...
They're a secret order of grinder wizards.
But, yeah, so I reading through this, and, when I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to talk about it today, I was trying to think back in the books, and I realized that one of the reasons all of this sounds so incongruous is there isn't even really a romance subplot in the books. I mean, there's the whole thing with the elf lady and the guy whose name I forgot, the descendants, the one true king. Is it?
And Aragorn?
Aragorn, yeah, and So there's that, but even that's not a huge plot point.
Not really. I mean, you watch Lord of the Rings for the fucking battles and the magic.
Yeah, and then the people who read the books, it's because of the deep lore and the cool history and the fantasy setting. I don't think that we need to have a conference where we speculate on whether or not Frodo was bumming Sam.
Well, that's the thing. Wait, before you even mentioned what this was all about, and you were like, "Let's go a conference on Lord of the Rings," I was like, "Oh, are we gonna find out who would be pregnant if Sam and Frodo fucked?" But it was real.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say, I'm making a lot of jokes about this. I think, obviously, disability is a very serious thing. Likewise. Yeah. Trans people it's a very serious process.
Yeah.
This is completely unserious, so I'm not going to take it in a serious manner. I'm going to make a lot of jokes.
Well, the thing is, if I had seen this agenda, I probably wouldn't have looked twice. If I'd seen this agenda and it was 8 out of 10 items were about Lord of the Rings and who the fuck is Tom Bombadillo, or I don't know, let's speculate on what the hell the wizards actually are, or something like that. And then you had 1 or 2 that were one of these, let's see how we can apply cultural norms.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that could be really... what was Gandalf's life like as a child? Because you only see him as an old man.
Yeah, was he ever a child? Or was he just brought into the world as this old wizard man?
Godlike being, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even a huge... I watched the movies before I'd ever read the books. And I did go back and later in life, when I was doing a lot of traveling, listen to the first and second audiobooks for Lord of the Rings. But...
Sorry.
No, go on.
gonna say it's very important to me though that if they're gonna say all this stuff about the Gondorians and the hobbits, they better also apply it to the armies of Sauron, because I want to know about, disabled Uruk-hai and their pension schemes.
And their war wheelchairs.
Yeah. The fucking.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened to the poor bastard who ran up the walls of Minas Tirith with a grenade strapped to his chest to blow up the wall.
Yeah, that guy.
Did he have life insurance?
Did he have to go through physical therapy after that? So again, just to reiterate your point, I should make clear that we're not making fun of any of the people that like these sorts of.
We're not making fun of the concepts. We're making fun
Yeah.
of the stupid people that are putting it in a fantasy setting,
Yeah.
where it never has belonged.
No, it's like I don't know. If in the mid 2000s somebody asked like, what would Luke Skywalker think of George Bush? It's like, who cares? It's a completely different fucking universe.
Can an ant get wood?
I think by default. But anyway, I may or may not, like, obviously July 30th.
Yeah, it'd be great to listen to, but I don't know. Like, you can't take that shit with even a pinch of salt. Like, it's just so stupid.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 items on this agenda. And of those 16 items, there is only... God, I don't think there are any, actually.
About what?
That aren't about one of these, like, weird modern... these modern cultural topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hold on. I just saw one more. We can move on after this, but where was it? There was one that just seemed very odd to me because it was talking about here it is. Hidden visions, iconographies of alterity, this new word that I've learned, in Soviet bloc illustrations for Lord of the Rings.
Iconographies for
alterity, that word that we just learned.
That's like all something, isn't it? You said.
Yeah, it's other or something like that.
Right. So iconography for alternate Soviet drawings.
I guess
that doesn't make any fucking sense. What Soviet drawings?
Well, I don't know.
Soviet drawings of Lord of the Rings.
We'll have to check it out at 11:30 Eastern Time on July 4th.
Yeah, I guess so.
They also have one about Chinese translations of Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Anyway.
That's boring as fuck.
So we can. Actually, the Chinese translation ones is one of maybe the only ones here that is relatively relevant.
Yeah.
All right, we can move on to another topic, but hold on one second. Yeah, so second topic. I don't have one.
Yep.
You said you were thinking you had something.
Yeah, I've got one.
All right, what's up?
And it's something that I messaged you about. Well, I didn't really say as a topic. There's a fuck ton of demos on the Steam store at the moment.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I really need to get on doing 5-second attention span a little bit more religiously.
There's like 12 of them in one text box, and they honestly, all of them look really fucking good. Which is kind of even worse because they're not actually out. So I'm like, well,
yeah. What was this one that you sent me?
So the one I sent you was one that I've seen someone play like weeks.
Terra Nil. Okay. Terra Nil is a reverse city builder. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's not really a city. It's not really a reverse city. I wouldn't really describe it as that. It's more like you're given a barren wasteland and you put stuff down and it like springs nature from around it, kind of thing. I don't know. It's kind of it's interesting. Um, but yeah,
Hmm. I
and there's a whole bunch of other like Animal Crossing-esque games, so I'm sure I'm going to be looking at least one of them.
that's something
There's
that
another game for me and Alicia to play.
that's something that a lot of companies or game companies demos have become like we're kind of getting back to where we were in like the 90s and 2000s where they would give away like basically a third of the game as a demo and just be like play it if you like it buy it and people would and
Yeah, but there used to be a lot more of a game in those demos.
yeah yeah but I'm saying kind of getting back to that where they're like demos will actually let you play a decent chunk of the game
Yeah,
although I'm just and meanwhile like they're off in their own little world companies like EA and Ubisoft who just go like oh hey you want to play any of our game at all pay us $300
indeed. And then for the rest of the game, you'll pay us the subscription fee.
oh yeah the speaking of uh the Halo Infinite like the full trailers and stuff dropped for that last weekend
Oh
and
yeah, were you on Halo yesterday?
I was yeah Duncan and I were playing Halo 1 co-op
Yeah,
um on Legendary. That game still really holds up pretty well.
yeah. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah. I was saying that Halo Infinite, it looks really good. They've got like the multiplayer. First of all, is going to be free to play, which is awesome. Um, and then the campaign is what I think you get like if you actually buy the game, you get like some extra cosmetics, and then you actually get the full campaign in the co-op mode and all that. But just the straight up multiplayer is free. And then they have a battle pass system too that they're putting in to allow for that. But it's not like when the season expires, you lose access to the old battle pass. If you ever bought a battle pass, you still have access to it, and you can actually buy previous ones and stuff. And so if you
Yeah.
see a battle pass and you're like, oh, I really like that piece of armor that was for that one. I think the current one is shit. You can go back and buy it. I would be annoyed if they had that system in there and made you pay for the multiplayer, but since it's free to play, I'm like, okay, they got to make money somehow, and this will keep a decent sized player base.
Yeah, and one of the constant arguments against Battle Pass is that like you're essentially paying for more work, but then if you think about it, you're paying for a game which is technically work by your logic. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a weird one.
it's the psychology behind that. Well, it's the same sort of idea behind achievements. Like
Hmm.
putting achievements in the game, you're not just playing the game to have fun or play around. A lot of the time, you're trying to. It gives you a goal to work towards, which is kind of the point of a lot of games, except the kind of open world ones where you, like Minecraft, where you can just build stuff.
Yeah, but I will be forever mad at Xbox 360 for having, they were kind of one of the first people to introduce multiplayer as something you have to pay for separately. And I fucking hate having to pay separately for multiplayer because, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, it's a part of the game.
Well, for the you're talking about for Xbox Live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that
Then
started with the
then
original
PlayStation
Xbox.
jumped on it.
Yeah, that
And
started with
they
the original Xbox.
Yeah.
God, I
Okay.
remember. I remember play. What was the first game? The first Xbox Live game I played was Mech Assault, I think. Maybe
Was what?
Mech Assault 2 or Mech
Right.
Warrior 2 or something like that. Some big giant robot arena shooter.
I see.
It's fun. Miss those early days of Xbox Live.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what was the first multiplayer game I ever played? The first like first-person shooter I probably ever played was, I guess, Battlefield Bad Company 2,
Hmm.
which was an amazing multiplayer, and I'm really sad that not many people play it anymore, so you can't really play it online.
Yeah, the first shooter I ever really played at all seriously was the original Halo, and that one it didn't have Xbox. Xbox Live wasn't around at that point, so you had to like hook the Xbox up to your computer and then use like GameSpy Arcade to set up like online LAN games if you wanted to do actual online multiplayer. But I mean, the first shooter I ever played, period, was when I was like 6 or 7, and it was like a like a clone of either Doom or Wolfenstein, but that same like aim down the middle of the screen kind of shooter where it's not really 3D, but it sort of looks like it.
Wait, that was multiplayer, you're saying?
No, not multiplayer, just shooter in general.
Oh. Yeah, first shooter I ever played would have been what's it called? Outlaws. That was one. I think I showed it to you, that super old cowboy game.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I think I've seen that game before at like GameStop or somewhere.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
It's quite historical. But yeah, no, that was I think that was my thing. You had a subject?
Sort of, but not really. It was just something I was thinking about. Because after we talked last week about the whole Discord stages thing, where we went into that debate channel, and kind of you were commenting on the way I was talking with the people in the channel, and how I was being fairly patient, not confrontational, but it made me think later, because like one of the guys obviously he was very much, this is exactly how it is, I'm right, and it's just a matter of convincing everyone else. I was thinking more on that, and I don't know, I feel like it's something that is becoming more and more of an intractable problem, and I do think it is a problem when you've got people who are, I don't know, so entrenched in orthodoxy that they can't actually consider an alternative opinion or belief.
Yeah. I guess because it means a lot to them. I mean, I know it means a lot to you, but you're not extreme like they were.
Well, it doesn't even have, I mean, that I used that as an example, but it doesn't have to be religion. Yeah. It can be anything. Like, people who just, it could be as simple as food. Like, can only have fries with ketchup and anything else is heresy.
Pineapple on pizza.
My mother and father both like Hawaiian pizza, which is pineapple and ham. Not a huge fan. I don't really like.
Yeah, but you don't like sweet things, so I get why you wouldn't like pineapple.
Pineapple's a bit more citrusy, but yeah, it's just not a. I don't like. Yeah,
I don't mind pineapple.
I'll eat it, but I'm. Yeah.
It's not your favorite, yeah. God. I've been thinking about pizzas all week.
I think I might actually have a pizza for lunch.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get me a sandwich and some crisps.
Nice.
Or chips, as you would say. Some chips. What were we talking about?
I have no idea. We talked about Lord of the Rings, and then... Oh, yeah. This was kind of just a vague topic. I didn't have anything specific prepared, but just the idea of, like... But what's a way to like bring that conversation around? Because I was talking about people who are kind of firmly stuck in their opinions and not kind of willing to have a debate. There's always going to be some people like that, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's just the state of online people.
Yeah. It's not even how much. I feel like it's bleeding into the real world now. There are people at... So I'm going to just... A conversation... I'll give you an example. A conversation I had with one of my coworkers, right? They asked about something, right? And I gave a response that was kind of... It wasn't like any of the mainstream opinions, I guess, on this topic. And it clearly made the person, like, physically uncomfortable. And they almost reflexively spit out, like, it almost could have come from like a teleprompter, like the way it was recited.
Okay, what
And
was on the topic?
I don't know if I want to. So the topic was it was the vaccine, right?
Right, yeah.
And I was mentioning that you know it's good if people get it, but I don't think that it's a problem if people who are young and healthy don't get it. You know, whatever.
Right.
And the person got very uncomfortable and then spit out the but we need to hit this number to do this, and you're helping save lives, and and it's just like it could have come from an official press release.
Yeah.
And I think I'm seeing that more and more with, like, for lack of a better term, normies, people who just like they're uncomfortable even considering something that isn't the prevailing opinion on a topic. Like, not even considering it, just when they hear it.
I think people who, if you don't know someone, then you're less likely to get a genuine answer from them. So if someone does actually know you, like this person obviously knew you, then they're gonna be a lot more forward with their opinions in real life.
Mm.
But unlike on, say, Twitter, where you just send out a message and everyone in the world can read it, and you pour your heart and soul into it for God knows what reason, that that same person would not stand up in front of a crowd of people and speak their mind.
Yeah. Well, we've ragged on social media before.
I'm not even ragging on social media particularly. I'm ragging on people for being
but
disingenuous with their beliefs
on social media or in real life.
in in such a way that they don't believe in their beliefs so strongly that they would say in real life, but they think that they're super protected online, so they'll say anything online, even if it's not what they strictly believe in.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. But that does kind of come back to the point I was going to make about social media. Just that the human brain really isn't equipped for it. Like, we're not supposed to be able to interact with a few thousand people at once because your primitive part of your brain that keeps track of, like, your standing socially, if it sees, like, even 200 people, which is nothing when you're talking about the internet, all saying bad things because you said something they didn't like, or all saying good things because you said something they did like, that basically tells your brain, like, the entire tribe hates me, or the entire tribe likes me. And that can have some pretty detrimental psychological effects.
Yeah, if you think about, like, back in the days when we didn't have such technology, and let's say you're in a theater, right, performing. You finish your act, and like everyone in the theater would stand up and applaud. That'd be like what, 200 people tops?
Yeah, something like that, moderately sized theater.
Whereas if you're a professional person who puts something up on, say, Twitter these days, it would get like possibly hundreds of thousands of likes.
Yeah.
So I think the proportions are all thrown out with it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like I'd far rather have, one person singing my praise in real life than 100 people who just clicked a button, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you think that, and personally, I think I'd be the same way, but you hear, like, stories about people who are these social media giants, I guess. You know, big stars on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. And they go through legitimate, like, depression if their numbers, like, dip a little bit.
Yeah. We were talking about, what's his name? Jim.
Oh, Jim Sterling, yeah.
Keep wanting to say Jimmy Savile, and I'm like, no, that's definitely not the same person. And I'm not even going to explain that. Yeah, Jim Sterling, he's going through a dark phase because he thinks that everyone hates him because of his recent life choices. Sorry, they.
I don't know.
I think it's they.
I don't know. I've stopped keeping track.
But he's like putting out a lot of. Fuck, I am terrible, but they are terrible. They're not terrible. Fuck me.
This is hilarious to watch.
They are putting out angry videos saying that the people who subscribed to them previously and have now unsubscribed are doing it because of their life choices and not the fact that they keep putting out videos about hating those people.
The thing is, the quality of gyms. I'm not even going to bother with the pronouns because it's just too confusing to me. The problem is the quality of the videos that Jim was putting out. Like, in my opinion, it started degrading like a while back. I used to watch the videos that they put out.
I think it's Jim's Stephanie Sterling now.
Is that what it is?
I think so, yeah. It's Stephanie in the middle.
I don't know.
Yeah, his videos just became a lot more political, didn't they?
Well, not even political. Just like they just kind of went down. I mentioned when we talked about this the other day, there was a video that when he was with The Escapist that put out that was quite good and really well thought out. It was essentially like an essay on the way child characters are in video games and how occasionally writers use them as like a lazy crutch to go like insert thing character wants to save here instead of actually making them characters in their own right. And I drew parallels when you were talking about the decline of Jim Sterling to and a much older YouTuber, Darkside Phil, who he also did like streams and stuff too on Twitch. I think I don't know which one he was more popular on, but he went through a similar thing where his numbers started declining, his views started going down, his revenues started going down, and he started becoming more and more bitter and negative towards the people watching. Just there's an old there are clips out there somewhere, but he's like, "Thank you, all you worthless humans, for the views." And he's he's trying to be sarcastic, but he's very clearly angry at the same time. There was there's also a bit of a controversy where he accidentally left his stream going when he was
having him time.
Yeah.
So I mean the more recent story that's going around YouTube at the moment is, have you heard this about Asmongold?
I saw something come up on my feed about it, but I didn't watch any of the videos.
Yeah. He's kind of I don't know, I think he's just kind of sick of playing World of Warcraft. But he doesn't want to like just throw in the towel, and like what's it called? Performance anxiety? He gets that a lot. I think that's, it's a really unfortunate thing, because even though 90% of his, fans or more, they don't. I mean, I don't think they even care if you played a different game. But it's a safe thing keeping playing World of Warcraft, and especially if you're anxious about it, I can understand it being very difficult to try and branch out into something new.
Yeah, I've seen that happen with multiple other YouTubers that I follow. There was a YouTube channel that back when StarCraft 2 was huge. They were called Lag TV. Absolutely loved their videos. It was this Canadian duo, and they would they're still both active. One of them streams a lot. Actually, I think they both still stream a lot. And now they have a podcast they do together called Technical Alpha. It's pretty good. I really enjoy it. But they the one guy Maximus Black, and the other guy was Nova War. Those were the two. They did great like casts, because they at the time you had like the professional StarCraft casters that wore a suit and tried to actually talk about the game mechanics and stuff like that, and these two were just the exact opposite. It was like, this guy's rushing over here and he's kicking him in the ass, just like or something like, just like all this, he's the Zerg player is making the Terran look like a crybaby bitch right now, like just stuff like that. And it was very clearly two amateurs that just really loved the game and loved talking about it. And they tried to make the transition away from StarCraft at one point, but they didn't because their fan base was still really into it and complained. But they probably would have followed him anyway. I know I would have. And
they would have got new people from the whatever they moved on to.
Yeah,
like,
but
different fans.
But they stuck with StarCraft, and so their numbers kind of tanked after that.
Yeah.
The other example, of course, is Donkey. He used to be like mostly League of Legends.
Right.
A lot of his videos focused around that, and then he made the transition away from it, and he's still huge.
Yeah, and he openly says he fucking hates League.
Yeah. I don't. All of his complaints about that game are 100% true, and they're most of the reason that I don't play it at all anymore. Like I held on to that game for a few more years after I finished. After I probably should have stopped playing that game in like 2018 because that's when it stopped really being fun for me.
People go into that game knowing full well that there'll be times when you just want to punch a wall. So I don't think anyone can be surprised when someone wants to stop playing.
I broke a keyboard in half playing that game.
Yeah.
I punched right through it. I was getting so pissed.
It's like someone I used to play HOTS with. Because I kind of come and go with HOTS. I play it for like a month or two, and I stop playing for a month or two. And he was just shocked that I didn't want to play it at one point. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'll come back to it eventually, maybe, probably. But like,
you need a break.
Yeah. Because it's not always fun. Because you can have like literally 8-game lose streaks, and you just feel like you're super shit at the game.
Oh my god!
And it's everyone else's fault because you're getting pissy about it, and it's like, nah, you just need to take a break and come back to it with a fresh head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do with StarCraft. I'm trying to get back into it. I've been playing. Well, I've been playing through the campaign on Brutal, and I actually yesterday I was streaming a bit of it and playing, and I was getting my ass handed to me by the AI, like on 2 levels. I couldn't get around. Plus, I'm on the Terran campaign, which is my absolute worst race in that game. But still, I used to be able to clear that campaign on Brutal, no problem.
Yeah.
But I was legitimately struggling. I finally did beat the level that I was on, and it's weird. Once it clicked for me, like it just happened all at once. Like the first, like I was struggling, and then all of a sudden, it was just like I've reached Zen, and then I was able to just plow through the level on that second try with no issues.
But yeah, there's I think I sent you a video of someone playing the Zerg campaign, and I think they were doing it on the hardest difficulty, and they were only allowed to use untalented Zerglings, or something like that.
That's legit.
Oh no, maybe it was that. I think it was that just none of their units were allowed to die. That was it. Yeah.
That's
they
weren't allowed
to use any units. Yeah. So basically, any round where you get forced to have like Zerglings or Banelings, he just had to put them at the back and not use them.
There's a level which is entirely Banelings. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, it's a bonus level. He just had to not get, because that's one that Wait, entirely Banelings? Did you say?
Yeah.
It was probably a bonus level, I'm assuming.
I think it may have been.
But yeah, no, I know there was when you upgrade the Zerglings in certain missions, don't you?
Yeah.
Couldn't do any of them because you have to use Zerglings.
God, I love that campaign. I'm looking forward to that one because that's probably my favorite campaign because Zerg is my favorite race to play. All right, we're kind of we've actually gone over.
Oh, really?
We've just kind of been idly chatting and the time went by.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
I want to see Lord of the Rings 2 with, gay helicopter orcs and disabled Urukai pensioners.
Okay.
That is all.
And on that point, This is going to be the end of segment 1 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you'll hear us again momentarily for segment 2. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 2, our media segment, and we did not do movie night again. Haven't in a while. It's my turn, and we just need to find the time to do it.
Yeah, we watched 2 in 1 week, and then we watched none for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, we're nothing if not inconsistent.
Indeed. But I have been watching things, or rather, I and Alicia have been watching things. That's right, we've been watching Castlevania, the Netflix series.
Oh, how is that?
Based off of the popular Namco game?
Is it Namco or
Konami.
Capcom?
Konami.
Somebody makes it.
Yeah. Namco. Konami. Yes, and it's... Some bits are what I completely expected, other bits are completely unexpected. First off, the very first thing, it opens on a field of impaled skeletons, right? And I was like, hold on, pause. This is a 15. That was the first thing you see when watching the series, and it's impaled skeletons with like spikes, some of them going through like the skulls and through the eye sockets and things. And I'm like, 15. Okay. And this is gonna be more like a rundown of the first episode and a bit of the second.
Yeah, go for it. I did that with Lucifer like a while back. So
yeah, there's a lady going up to this massive creepy castle through this wasteland of skeletons. A horde of bats like rushes her, and she fucking like stabs one of them out of the air. There's a lot of viscera. Pardon me. Anyway, so she walks up to the door, and it kind of opens automatically. She walks in and says, "I want help with my science, basically." And Dracula is there, like a hot, cool Dracula, as opposed to Dracula.
Yeah.
And he sweeps up behind her, and he's like, why should I give a shit? You're all scum. I used to, hunt you all. I don't so much anymore, but meh. Here's my science laboratory. And he takes her through to the science laboratory, and she's all like, oh, I want to do good for humanity, and maybe for you. Anyway.
Sounds like a really cheap politician.
So, it cuts forward to I don't know how many years in the future. And she's being burnt at the stake by religious folks. And while this is happening, she's just screaming in the air like, don't kill them, please, don't kill them. And all the religious folks are like, she's talking to Satan! She wants us to die! And there's all these people standing around watching her being burnt. And then she burns. Dracula turns up. Well, no, it kind of flashes back like 20 minutes then, and Dracula turns up to her house. And there's an old lady there, like, crying and putting flowers down by the house. And Dracula's like, what happened here? She says, the lady who lived here is being burnt currently for being a witch. You must be her husband. She did really great things for me and my family, because obviously she was just a doctor, basically. She was doing science. Dracula's like, fuck the humans! He was like, she was the only thing for me. She was my wife. And scares the shit out of the old lady. And then he like disappears, and well, he turns into like a fireball and then disappears. He reappears 20 minutes later at the pyre. Wife's just died. The pyre explodes. This giant flame comes out of it with Dracula's face inside, and he's like, Fuck you, religious people. I will give you 1 year to forget about your gods, burn the symbols. Otherwise, I'm going to kill everybody.
Holy shit.
It's pretty intense, right? And so they're like, fuck you, Satan. We won't bow to your whims. She was a witch. You're a devil. Fuck you. And they start flicking V's. No. Um, and so, okay, then it cuts.
Mm-hmm.
A year later. It's in the city. The big doors of the cathedral open. And this big Pope boy, and when I say big, I mean lavishly treated, is carried out onto a podium, and he's like, a year ago we burnt a witch, and we were told by the devil that he would come and destroy us now, a year later. But as he's the devil, he lies, and he has lied now, and we are fine and happy and good. And then the sky goes black. Yeah. The sky goes cloudy, the sun turns like red, blood starts raining from the heavens, like skinned animals start falling from just the sky, and like half jackal, half bat things come down and just... Oh wait, no, his castle, because he can move his castle. His castle just appears on the edge of town. All these black beasts flood out of it, start ripping people apart, like gouging people through the back of their heads, their eyes popping out the front, entrails flying everywhere. Everyone gets murdered. And yeah, and then Dracula's like, right, now that you've killed this entire city, go and kill all the other fucking cities. Like, just kill all the humans.
God.
There's another jump cut. There is a lot of jump cuts, I will say. In the first episode, anyway. And it's a bar scene. It's like a really commoner bar. This is obviously a little ways in the future where everyone knows about Dracula's curse and things.
Mm-hmm.
And this common dude is like, fuck the higher class. Especially the ones that use magic. They're the black magic users that are with Dracula. They've killed everyone. There's a higher class dude stands up in the tavern and like, kind of like Geralt of Rivia style.
Yeah.
Kind of just, they all attack him and he just floors them all. Like, smashes their heads on tables and stuff. He's like the last son of this particular high family that uses black magic and fights the beasts. So even though he's doing good for them, they all hate him because he's using magic, and the church doesn't like magic. That's pretty much it. Now he's moved to he's gone to a different city for breakfast, and the city has been like ravaged by Dracula's troops recently, and the Dracula's troops are going to come back again the next night. Yeah, and that's where I am.
I mean, it sounds interesting. I may have to check this out now. But the gore and viscera bit, this is like, this seems like
It's
a kind
15.
of
Like what?
Well, yeah. That's
like, I don't see how it's a 15. Sorry, go on.
That show that I was talking about a couple weeks back, Invincible. That was another one that some of the episodes were rated 18 plus. Some of the really bad ones, but there were a bunch of them that were rated at like 16 plus.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like torture or, lack of consent or anything. It's all been very quick deaths. It's just been very violent deaths.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a trend with a lot of like modern animated stuff, especially Western animated stuff, is things getting significantly more gory and visceral.
And I don't think it's like, it's not scary. It's not scary at all. Because it's over in a flash. And at the end of the day, it is just animated stuff. There's a lot of eye stuff. There's a lot of like flying eyes when people get hit,
Yeah.
um, which is not super pleasant. But if you like the genre and that's the only thing turning you off of it, I would still suggest you watch it because so far I've only watched 2 episodes. It's pretty fucking cool.
Hmm. Yeah. I never played. Actually, I take that back. I played Castlevania. I think it was Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the DS.
Yeah.
That's the only one I've ever played.
I've never played any of them. I remember I bought one of them for my brother. And I think I've watched a YouTube video or two of like people playing it. But like the video game's all about being in Dracula's castle, though, isn't it? And fighting your way up to killing Dracula.
Yeah. Yeah, you fight your way
So
through
this
like minor monsters, pick up weapons and power ups and things, and then eventually, yeah, you fight Dracula.
Yeah, this is more like, well, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but like, imagine you take the characters from Call of Duty, the franchise, make a movie out of them, but it's when they've returned from war and they're just doing their everyday sitcom-esque lives. Like they've taken all the characters, they've moved them somewhere else onto a larger scale playing field, and just said, "Here's what happens when these characters clash."
Interesting. So I'm wondering if the guy in the bar, I think the character you play as in Castlevania, I'm pretty sure his name was Alucard, which
It's Dracula backwards.
yeah. I think.
Yeah, no, it's not Alucard. It's I can't remember his name. He has got a name though.
I did look it up, by the way. It is Konami that makes it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Castlevania, Dracula's Curse.
Also, I think if you liked, what was that? What was the Alucard vampire hunting anime that I watched recently?
Hellsing. Probably
Hellsing.
Hellsing Ultimate, if I'm...
If you liked Hellsing, you'll like this. It's less cheesy. There's no, holy guy screaming every time.
Amen!
Exactly.
I love that
Or
character.
maybe there is, I just haven't got to that part yet.
That character was so... Just like throwing knives and scrolls at people.
Also, the holy people are definitely considered the evil people in this show so far. So much that they're even like beating up people who they make scapegoats of people, run them out of the city so that they don't lose face. They walk around with maces and knives and shit. Yeah, not nice people.
Very much the Inquisition.
And they hate like science and medicine and stuff. So
yeah. God, that was an interesting... I can't remember when exactly it happened, but like just as a point on medieval history, and I think situations like the Inquisition and like some of the things that happened around the Black Death have given like people the impression that religion was very much opposed to scientific theory, but in the Dark Ages in particular, like they were the only people doing science. Like monks in monasteries were the ones actually doing research.
Yeah, I think that it's the same with any group of people. There's always one like the grapes that spoil the batch, as it were. Like the whole priests' names are forever fucking tarnished because of those fucking douchebags that did the terrible things.
Yeah, that did the kitty diddling.
Yeah, and yeah, no, it just fucking ruins their whole reputation, and it's terrible.
There's some interesting, like, not to dwell on this too long, because I actually remembered I have been watching something this week that I could talk about. But it's like the whole idea that everyone thought the world was flat before Columbus or something like that, and before like the explorations, like that's
was
it's
it
not true.
Archimedes?
No, the people kind of knew the Earth was round all the way back to Greece, but there's a false, I don't know what to call it. It's like just popular knowledge that
Fallacy.
people, Yeah, just a fallacy in people's understanding of history that they think that before people sailed across the ocean and found America, they thought the world was flat and you just fall off the edge. It's not true.
Yeah.
People found out the Earth was round, and then they knew it all the way back, in the BC era. Like the Greeks were measuring the curvature of the Earth.
And it's great because you can take that kind of stuff, that misunderstanding in history, and make a really good story out of it. I mean, just think of like Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
His world, the disc world, is a disc on the back of 4 elephants, on the back of a turtle flying through space.
Yeah, I think it pulls it from some Indian mythology. Like,
is it? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's part of Hindu faith, maybe.
I mean, it does kind of sound a bit Hindu because of the animals, and like the tears, I guess.
I'm just looking at apparently it's there's a few different things in the creation stories of the Lenape and Iroquois people. The earth is created as soil is piled on the back of a great sea turtle and continues to grow until it is carrying the entire world. Many indigenous tribes of North America. I thought that it was also something. Oh yeah, no, it is. It's actually a belief that's spread around. They also believe it in the world turtle in Hindu mythology is also known as Akupara. And
right.
In Chinese mythology, the creator goddess Nuwa cut the legs off a giant sea turtle and used them to prop up the sky. So it's apparently in a couple different.
What a bitch!
Yeah, right. It's just
what turtle?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Why didn't it just pull its legs into the shell?
Oh my god! All right, so the Chinese goddess that did it was a little bit more of a bitch, but it's shared with these other ones.
Yeah, but no, as you say, there's all these different interpretations of how the world could have been, in people's minds, could have been made. Like another great one is the Norse world, where everything is surrounded by the Ouroboros.
Yeah, the Ouroboros. It's a snake that eats its own tail, and it encircles the world.
It's the child of Loki, one of the children of Loki.
Yeah. And
there was also a wolf, wasn't there? Loki fucked some weird shit.
Yeah, Fenrir was also the giant wolf.
Fenrir. The wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. God, if you're world building, use some of this shit because it's fucking cool.
So not to go off on history too much.
Sorry.
So I've been watching Star Trek: The Next Generation before bed lately.
Oh yeah.
I've seen the series once before. I never knew pretty much anything about Star Trek until the modern movies came out, and I saw one of them after it came out with some friends, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good, and it got me interested a little bit. And Next Generation is one that I'd heard good things about and always wanted to watch, and a couple of years back I watched the whole series, and it was excellent. And I'm just kind of rewatching a few episodes now, just as something to kind of chill out and relax to before I fall asleep. And I'm struck over and over again. I keep watching it and thinking they would never make a show like this now. Or if they do, that show, I haven't heard of it.
Is it not woke?
Well, it's not only that, it's just everything that they really, it's very slow paced in times. It's less because they didn't have the special effects, they didn't have the budget, so they couldn't do a bunch of on-screen action. So there's a lot of moral and philosophical debate that goes on in an episode. Like the one I just watched was, there's a non-Federation planet, and they're there basically just on a trade mission, dropping off some medical supplies, and then they get something from the people on the planet, but and there's apparently like an insurrection on like the southern continent on the planet, and these people are trying to get independence by blowing up buses, which always works out so well.
Yep.
And during their way, like the chief medical officer, the doctor on the ship, gets kidnapped by one of these terrorists. And they spend like the like she's with them and like starts to see their point of view and starts to have like a begrudging like sympathy or empathy for the guy that's in charge of the movement. But then from the other side, you see like the security leader who's working with the rest of the crew to try and figure out where she's been taken and get her back and everything. And there's just they throughout the entire episode, the people writing it never took a side. Like, all the characters are constantly not arguing with each other, but they clearly all have slightly different but strong convictions. Like, the doctor is empathetic to the terrorist leader, but at the same time, she is like, you shouldn't be doing this with killing him. Then he says something that's very true. It's like, you came from an idyllic society, and that idyllic society came out of years and years and centuries of conflict. Like, you're at a perfect state now, but 100 years ago, 200 years ago, what were you? And then, the Captain Picard, he's obviously like, we don't negotiate with terrorists, basically, is his stance. Like, they kidnap him at one point in the episode, and anyway, and then the terrorist leader like eventually starts to get infatuated with the doctor, but still is so like committed to his cause. He's like, well, I may have to kill your captain. He goes to actually blow up the ship, and he knows that woman's son is on the ship. And the whole idea is to do that, to bring the Federation in so that they become a third party mediating the dispute, and they're forced to give concessions to the terrorists and stuff like that. It's a very complicated plot, but once they kidnap the captain, they figure out where they are, and are able to send like a small team down there to take him out. And the whole thing culminates in this moment where the terrorist leader realizes that they're about to be taken down, and he rushes into the room where he's got the captain trussed up, draws a pistol, and is about to kill him. And then the head security officer shoots him in the back. And like the terrorist leader, and kills him. And then this kid who was with the terrorist cell also has a gun and has it pointed at the security officer that was doing it. And eventually they manage to talk him down. He puts the gun down, and it's a very unclean like ending that doesn't give you like
satisfaction.
And it doesn't give you a clean answer. Like the episode, a lot of the episodes in this series are designed that way. They just like, they don't give you a clean answer. They're just like, here, this is what happened. This is everyone's opinion. You think about it. And
does Kirk fuck someone? One of the aliens?
Kirk isn't in this series. Kirk was the original Star Trek. This one is Next Generation, so it's got like Picard and all the other ones. But there was a line at the end there. It's where this head security officer is talking to the first officer of the ship, and he says something along the lines of, why did you kill him? And she says something along the lines of, in prison he would have been a cause for them to rally around. In death he's a martyr, but at least in the short term the violence will die down a bit. And it was, and she looks back up at him and said something along the lines of, I told you, it's not clean, but it's what we have, or something like that. I can't remember the exact line. It was really good. But essentially, it's driven home.
Did what you had to do in the moment, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's driven home that they're like in a very, very messy situation, and they're trying to make the best of it. And then the point the other guy makes is, she's like, when the kid goes away, he puts on the gun and they take him away. She's like, and already there's his replacement.
Yeah.
And the first officer says, or maybe the cycle will break with him. Maybe it starts with one child putting down his gun.
You could break the cycle at him by shooting him in the back of the head now.
That's the cynical.
It'd be very unethical.
That's the cynical option, yes. Yeah.
But it would work. I'm just saying, if this was the world of Red Rising, that kid would not be there for another second.
That is true. He would probably just get shanked.
He would, yeah, just not even that, just like fucking death gripped from behind by Spock. Spock could definitely
Spock
be
is
a
also
gold.
not in this series. He makes like a cameo later, but
No Vulcan death grip, then.
no. But this is I don't know. I really do like this series, and why I say it would never be made now is not because they don't have the whole they don't meet a diversity quota, but they actually, it's because they don't give you clean answers in a lot of episodes. Every episode is kind of tailor made to like challenge you to really. They tackle some pretty intense
topics. Yeah, it's not always a happy ending.
Yeah, challenging topics.
I think they still do that these days. It's just slightly rarer, I think.
Well, the other thing is it's also the series in general has a kind of a uplifting, kind of hopeful feeling to it for the future.
Okay.
Like, even though they go at these very tough and challenging topics, it resolves in a way that isn't sarcastic, isn't cynical. It gives you, it kind of, it has that hopeful vibe to it. It has a bright outlook for the future. That, even with all this struggle and adversity and these age-old philosophical problems, there's hope for the future. Which is something you don't get in a lot of shows now. Like, I mean, pretty much everything now has either a sarcastic or a cynical vibe to it.
Yeah. I guess so. Speaking of sarcasm, this is a very tenuous link. When's the next Peaky Blinders season out?
I don't know. I was actually thinking that there's a few series that I haven't seen anything from in a while. Let's see. So season 5 had just come out.
Did we finish that?
I think so.
Yeah, the last thing I can't remember his actual name. The owner of a certain gang in the Jew dude was back.
Yeah, the baker.
Yeah, what's his name?
I
can't believe I've forgotten. Like, he's like my favorite character. Even
I know, I can't remember his name anyway. Honestly, the only people whose names I still remember are like the core group of Shelbys. I've forgotten most of the other.
In every episode.
Yeah, like Tommy Shelby, John, Arthur.
I mean, John's dead.
Yeah, John's dead.
I mean, that was no great. He was a bit.
Well, I think he died at the right point, like, because he had a fairly decent role in the earlier seasons, but they were kind of they were running out of things for him to do.
Well, he never really had anything. He was always a background character, despite being in the core group.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, Arthur was obviously like
the loose
his
cannon muscle.
His specialty was like, yeah, loose cannon, crazy war experienced. Tommy's obviously the fucking brains. Like, even the new kid is like the accountant. He knows all about the money. John's just a fucking dumbass who's a slightly less crazy version of Arthur. Like, he's just a smaller version of Arthur in every way.
Well, he's a mix between Thomas and Arthur, I think, because he's a little bit of muscle and brawn. He's a little bit off the chain, but he also is a little bit more thoughtful than Arthur would be. So he's like, I always saw him as like somewhere in between the two of them. He's the bridge between Tommy and Arthur.
I don't know. But yeah, I can understand why yeah. But no, when's the next episode? Because fuck me, I'm not playing that game.
Yeah, I gotta look back and see if we can use any of that footage for a video. It's just, I mean,
Yeah,
there wasn't
we
really.
can't. And we'll rail on it in the next week's podcast.
Yeah, there's always that. There. Oh, by the way, yeah, for those that don't know, there's a Peaky Blinders video game. We played a
Don't
little
buy
bit of
it.
it. Yeah, it was a little underwhelming.
Mm. Did you get a refund for it?
I don't think so. I think I just kept it in my inventory. It'll be one of those things that maybe I'll go back to at some point. Yeah, I didn't refund it.
I don't think it was too expensive anyway, was it?
No, it was like $20 or something like that. Yeah, $25.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, but yeah, that's what I've been doing this week. And the last thing, just to round us out, because we got like 5 minutes or so before we finish this segment up. And this was just something I was thinking about when I was recording a video yesterday, because I was recording more Oni, that PlayStation 2 game I've been playing through.
Yeah.
And then yesterday in the later evening, I was playing Halo, and the same developers made both games. Halo came out. Oni came out first, then Halo came out later. Oni, you can see a lot of the ideas that they were going to implement in Halo in Oni. Oni being like an action, like kind of brawler for the PS2 and PC, and Halo obviously being a famous first-person shooter for the Xbox.
Yep.
The one thing that was like driving me nuts is like their level design is super inconsistent. They gyrate between giant wide open environments where everyone else has a machine gun and perfect aim and you don't. And keep in mind it's a brawler, so mostly it's based around like punch and kick combos, which by the way are insanely difficult to pull off. It's like it's like fighting game style. You have to do like frame perfect like button presses to get them to go off.
Yeah.
And half the time I just don't bother because of that. And then randomly, this part's already up. It's the last part that I've uploaded. I want to say part 6 or 7. Randomly, there was this amazing level. Like, it was so much fun. The level design was so cool and interesting. And then I realized they used this level design later in Halo. It was almost exactly the same thing. Like, where you have 2 parallel bridges, and then there's a long drop below, and you kind of have to work your way around central bits on the bridges, and there are enemies above and below you, and you have to kind of do a little bit of stealth and a little bit of fighting, and in and out of cover. It's a very fun level to play, even with the wonky controls. And then the level immediately after that, it's like chewing on glass. It's fucking... Like the level immediately after. I think I recorded for close to 50 minutes and I'm not done with the level yet. Because I just hit this point which is so difficult. And there's so long in between the checkpoints that it just... I think I'm near the end of the level though. I gotta finish recording.
Yeah, you do kind of spot these things in games that you've played a lot. You do see patterns that occasionally appear in new games, like so take CSGO for example. You remember Dust 2 map, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, Dust 2 and in Valorant the Italy map, is it the one I was thinking of?
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah,
guy.
It's a very similar structure.
Very similar map. Like you can go mid where there's double doors on the CT side.
Mm-hmm.
If you go B, you go through like that small little corridor, house room thing into B. A is pretty different. Hang on, I'm trying to picture the Valorant one now. Yeah, but like you can definitely see where they've taken aspects of the games.
Whether it's multiplayer or single player, whenever you're playing like an action-oriented game, a shooter, a brawler, anything like that, even exploration games, like the way the map is designed and laid out and how it unfolds for people playing it, like it really has a profound impact on the game.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Sorry.
no, I'm just thinking, like, in terms of multiplayer games, one of the reasons I love Halo 2 so much and just playing back on those old maps feels so good is they were so well designed, with a couple exceptions. There were a couple maps that were just absolute ass, but the vast majority of them were great. Bungie was very good at this thing back in the day, and you can kind of see that they got good at it by the time they hit Halo, because Oni, the map quality is a bit inconsistent.
And there is definitely, because you said some of the maps are ass. There is a difference between a good map and a bad map. Using the CS:GO examples again, you remember Lake House? We used to play that all the time.
Yeah.
Where it's got a bit of everything. It's got the long-ranged field. It's got the very short-ranged lake house. It's got water. It's a very beautiful map, I should say. It's got like a boathouse where there's like water mechanics. If someone jumps out of the water, you hear it. There's a roof. There's multiple floors.
Yeah.
It's got everything.
It's one of the reasons that I like that map so much, is because it encouraged my favorite type of thing to do. I love, like, taking advantage of lateral thinking when I'm playing in a multiplayer game.
The fucking banister trick you do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's an area that people always hide, and so I hide in an area that makes it so I'm not immediately visible. People aren't expecting me, so I can surprise them, and I can see from 3 directions, and I can immediately change to any other position in the house very quickly. I love that spot.
But I think I remember when you first did it, I was like, that's a really fucking stupid spot, mate. You're going to get spotted and shot. Like, a game later, I was up there crouching on the balcony with my shotgun pointed 180 degrees down.
It's like... It shouldn't work. It's such an idiotic spot, but because of the way that map's, like, dynamics work, it's almost like you're invisible sitting there.
Yeah, because when people are coming up the steps on the outside, you're just high enough because you're on top of the banister that people can't see your feet.
Yeah. And
so they just run up there, they don't see anyone there, they keep running up. And then when they get to a certain point, they still can't see you because there's, like, fit in the way, but you can see their legs, them running around.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic thing. Another, probably the quintessential best map that most people will know is, you might not know it, because I don't know how much COD you've played, but do you remember the map Rust?
No. Wait, that sounds really familiar. I'm thinking of the game Rust. No, I don't know it.
It's like a small, which is important in maps quite often. Small maps are quite often better because you get more action. A small, literally square map. It's the middle of a desert, and there's like a old ass broken oil refinery or something. It's just like a heap of metal, a building, but it's got multiple tiers. It's like a mountain. You can go through it, you can go under it, kind of thing. You can go on top of it, and there's this whole area around the side. It looks like crap because it's in the middle of a desert and there's a bunch of rusted metal. But it's a brilliant map. COD's actually got a few good maps. They got Nuketown as well, but they played the shit out of that.
Nuketown I've heard of before.
Yeah, everyone's heard of Nuketown because they put it in like 6 different games or something stupid. They put it in zombies maps. They've put it in the mobile version. It's played out too much. But it was a great original map.
Halo has its share of those maps. There's a map that's plagued. I say plagued. This is like the favorite MLG map in most of the original Halo games. In Halo 1, it was called Wizard. In Halo 2, it was called Warlock. In Halo 3, it was called either Warlock or Warlord. They just recreated it again. Yeah. It is a perfectly symmetrical octagonal map with 4 bases and a central pillar in the middle. Mostly open, some raised platforms, some underneath areas, but still mostly open. It is a map tailor-made for the battle rifle, which is the mid-range spawn weapon in Halo 2 and 3. I hate that weapon, and I hate that map, because that is the least Halo map in Halo. Like, Halo is about interesting environments. Like, you've got like Lake House. It's got a kind of a diverse array of different areas and strategies that you can use on it. That map, you have one strategy and one strategy only. That's like I had no respect for people who were good on that map, because okay, you've proven that you can use the frag grenade and the battle rifle, die in 2 seconds, and then come back and use those two things again. That's it. Yeah. You have one skill. 90% of the game you probably suck at. Like that I absolutely hated that map, and it came up so often, and whenever there was a choice between that map and something else, people always played that map. And I despised it. Anyway, we're kind of going over now. So God, we talked about that map thing a lot.
Yeah, sorry, that was a good topic.
Yeah, I should have brought that up at the beginning. Anyway, so we are going to be in segment 3 continuing and finishing up the review of Red Rising, the first book. It's now been 2 weeks since I finished it, so it's not, a week since I finished it, so it's not going to be fresh in my mind. I should still be able to recount it, because now I'm halfway through the second book. But yeah. Anyway, look forward to that. This is going to be the end of segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you'll hear us again momentarily for segment 3. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. This is segment 3, our wild card, and this week we are continuing the book review that we didn't finish last week. God damn it. He threw me off again.
It wasn't even a surprise one, it was just a slow burner and got you.
Yeah, it wasn't like a jump out, it was just like a slowly, as I'm doing the countdown, just saying goofy shit.
Honka bonk chunk donkalunks.
God damn it. Alright, so a quick recap. We are going over the book Red Rising, which I finished last week, and I'm already halfway through the second book. Now, last week we got about halfway through the book, to the point where they had brief synopsis. Society tiered in terms of caste, and each caste is a color, so red, green, blue, violet, gold's on the top. A red, who didn't know exactly how extensive this society was, is picked up by a terrorist organization known as the Sons of Ares. They do some stuff with his body and turn him into a gold, essentially. Do all this genetic and body modification to make him look exactly like a gold, and has all the same characteristics and everything like that. They train him up, educate him and everything, and his job is to infiltrate gold society. So he gets into this place called the Institute, or gets into a institute, the Institute of Mars, and it's where the upper crust of the golds go, and if they get in and they pass, then they come out as a rank called Peerless Scarred, essentially the best of the golds, the rulers of society. And so he finds out, they do a house selection, a Hogwarts-style house selection, except twist, when you get into your house, half the people are just there to be killed. And
don't you love that bit where, Hermione's breaking Ron's jaw in the basement?
She just uses that repair spell to put him back together and then beats him to death again. Oh my god, Harry Potter would be very different.
Especially because they're kids.
Yeah. Well, technically, they're kids in this. I think they make a point that they go into this institute at the age of 16 or 17.
Yeah, so they're not...
They're not kids. They're late teens. Yeah. But...
What is it that it's a Red Rising quote, in fact. Old enough to screw, old enough to... I can't remember what the last part is.
I can't remember, what the other one is.
Yeah.
But it goes along with it.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway, so we got to the point...
Old enough to crew. Drills.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's because the Reds. Yeah, the Reds, they're... If you're old enough to screw, old enough to crew. So they start working in the mines at, age 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they get to the end, and Cassius, the guy who, the main character Darrow met the night before, Cassius Albolona, and the brother of the guy that Darrow made friends with on the train ride over to the Institute, Julian Albolona, the guy that he had to beat to death in a dirty cell, is now noticing that his brother's not here, and is trying his best to figure out who killed his brother. And so he tries to play a game, no one's biting, and they go off. And Darrow kind of lies so that no one suspects him, right, no one suspects him, or so Cassius doesn't suspect him, because he's a son of a very powerful noble house, and also pretty much the most dangerous and highly skilled people there, who, lets it be known he's a well-trained martial artist. He kills his guy by collapsing his trachea with like one hit.
He's a very good swordsman as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so they all kind of get to know each other. They kind of meet some of the other characters. Some of the major ones: Antonia, Titus, Severo, Roke, Cassius I already talked about.
There was another lady, I can't remember what her name was though. Honestly, the women don't have a big part, apart from Mustang.
Her name started with a Q, the other woman, because she ends up being a love interest for one of the other side characters later.
Shit. It was Brooke's love interest.
I wanted to say it was like Quinn or something like that.
Quinn, yeah, I was like Quinn.
Quinn? Okay. Yeah. But, I mean, there are like three... You're right, there aren't as many prominent female characters in the story. I mean, there's the Sovereign, who's like the Queen of the Golds.
There is later.
Yeah.
You also get the sister, who's pretty cool.
But in the Institute, you're right, there's only like 3 or 4 female characters of note, and there's probably about double that male characters of note. But what have you. So they go through, but there's also, they make a point that there's also a lot fewer women in the Institute.
Yes.
So the ratio makes sense. Anyway, so they go through, they spend their first night, well, not their first night, they spend the next night sleeping in a much more Spartan environment, and then they are shipped off to a remote plain, or a remote valley, in one of Mars's southern continents, I think they say.
Hang on. The houses have been decided by this point.
They have been, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about that.
Oh, you want me to go back to that? Yeah, so Blue made a point that I kind of skipped over last time, how the houses were actually decided. So they're in House Mars. How that was selected, it was kind of like, think like the Sorting Hat, except you have like a representative of the house accompanied by a few extra people that are from the Board of Quality Control, as they called it. And they go around and they make picks from all the people, and the higher your pick, essentially, the more prestigious it is. Like they think you're a good one to have, and so they make a point that Darrow was picked 10th. The House Mercury people wanted to pick him, but they kind of the quality control people were like, no, move on. And then Mars picked him. He was picked 10th out of like 500 people.
And I should point out, they're not in House Mars because they're on the planet Mars. It just all the students just get divided into all these different planets, or gods, I should say.
Yeah, it's from the Roman pantheon. So you have like House Diana, House Ceres, House Pluto, House Mars, House Jupiter.
Pluto's just full of dogs.
Yeah, so they're in House Mars, and it's explained by their proctor, the guy who's in charge of their house, that gives them a briefing on what they're going to be doing in the Institute. That House Mars is like, they're the hotheads. They're the people who live like the ancient Spartans. They don't get given any special treatment, and just through their fury and fortitude, they're supposed to, take their find their way and like win that way. And the
burns
contest
bright but burns shortest.
Yeah. So the contest is this: every house gets a castle, of some kind of place where they have to start off. Not necessarily a castle, but in most cases a castle. they get a standard, and that standard is, the flag of their house. Mars is a wolf. And if they capture other people from other houses and stamp them on the forehead with the staff, they get a mark on their forehead, and they are now a slave to that house. They have to do whatever they're commanded to do.
Until they're retaken.
Until they're captured by someone else or released. And there's nothing actually stopping them from just running off, but if they do, essentially they're a pariah when they get out of the Institute. They're just eternally shamed.
Yeah, dishonored, and they dishonor their family.
Yeah.
Which in this culture is kind of worse than death.
Especially when you're talking about these like high nobility, like their houses. It's made a point that like honor duels are fairly common in this world amongst the higher up goals, because that whole family and house honor is something, and it's one of the things that makes Darrow such an outsider, because the family that they gave him, like for his history, they're basically nobodies from out in the asteroids, like out past Pluto, and so they
country bumpkins kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's got, he's nobility, but he's from a tiny noble house of nobodies who don't exist anymore because the parents are dead.
Yeah.
Which is how they were able to give him that identity. Anyway, so they explained that the goal is when one house is remaining, that's it. Game over. That house wins. And so the goal is to be that final house, to outsmart and overtake your opponents and so on. So House Mars starts out, they have a castle and pretty much nothing else. And so they go out and they have some like very rudimentary equipment, but it's like nothing special. Like,
well, they see a table laden with food and tools.
Right, and it turns out to be a trap laid by House Ceres. And so in the early scenes, they're all running around out in the field trying to get the lay of the land and everything.
Yep,
and
punching trees.
Yep. I think at one point, Darrow and Cassius, like, they run down a deer and just take it down barehanded. And they're like, look, we have a meal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after a while, things slowly, because there's no real leader, it's established that you become the primus of your house after you achieve certain things. And that's kind of rated by the proctors, the people who are overseeing this. Every house has a proctor assigned to it, and that proctor is the person who is, they're always watching from this floating sky fortress they call Olympus. And they can choose if you've done something of merit to reward you by giving you some item of use. Like maybe they'll give you, I don't know, food or water or some kind of a tool as a reward for achieving something during the contest, like taking over another house. You can get like some sort of boon from them.
Yeah, Hunger Games style.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to go back to the, unless you're going to get onto it, the trap thing, because there's a couple of significant things that come out of that.
No, go back to it. I was going to move on, but yeah, what's up?
Okay, so the two major things that they find out. One is that the other houses, not only did they get given food and tools, they also got given horses. So some of the houses were, from the start, been given a lot more wealth, and their house was in a far nicer place. Second of all, when Darrow and Cassius arrive at the trap where the tools are, Cassius picks up, I think, a pike or a sword or something.
Yeah.
And Darrow picks up a
table leg.
A sickle.
Oh, no. The sickle, but it wasn't a sword that... One of them picks up a table leg.
That might have been Cassius.
Yeah, it probably was... So basically, they become immediately famous amongst their group because it was House Ceres that set the trap. So House Ceres didn't get horses, but they got a ton of food. They got a bakery and like wheat fields and bread and orchards. So they got tons and tons of food and fresh water and high walls. House Minerva got horses. And
Right, yeah, I get those two.
that's where Mustang comes in.
But the sling blade thing was kind of the most important bit.
It was, yeah. So because it's made a point that a sling blade is an item that is used by the Reds and down in the mines, so they can kill these pit vipers that jump out at them, or essentially slice off a limb if they get stuck. So he's used to using these curved blades, whereas the nobility is used to fighting with these razors or straight blades. And so that's why Cassius goes for the table leg and he goes for the sickle. And I think the sickle is actually being carried by one of the House Ceres people, and he like beats him or something like that. And it doesn't matter exactly how it happens, but so with just like a table leg and this dull sickle, the two of them manage to kick the crap out of like 5 or 6 different people, and then get away from the trap.
Yeah, and the sickle from then on becomes Darrow's symbol.
Yeah, they start calling him Reaper. Anyway, so some things happen. I won't get too deep into those, but because they're not terribly important, but there's a lot of interpersonal conflict. There's a lot of vying for who's actually in charge and whatnot. And they end up fragmenting into 3 distinct factions. One led by Antonia, one of the prominent female characters that I mentioned earlier, who's kind of made out to be from the very beginning a extremely cold-hearted bitch, ruthless. She'll do whatever it takes to be on top. And then Titus, who is described as just a fucking boulder of a man.
Cunt.
Yeah. Oh. Well, no, they haven't gotten there yet. It's clear that he's very violent, and it's clear that he's very large. That's all you know about him so far. But at this point, he doesn't seem to be that much of a cruel person, but that does come later. And then Darrow and Cassius form their own faction. And essentially, this is where you got picked in the draft kind of comes in. The low drafts, the people who were chosen later, the low and the mid drafts, they kind of the smattering of random people, they side with Darrow and Cassius, because those two didn't really play politics too much. So you've got those two of the greatest people in the group, and kind of the dregs. And then some of the mid to high drafts go with Antonia, and then Titus gets the high drafts. And so Darrow and Cassius manage to find matches, which allows them to cook their food, whereas no one else has fire, pretty much, and so they're eating raw or just foraging for berries and roots and things like that. And this is where you start to see a dark side to Titus, though, because after a few forays against House Minerva, I think it was, and House Ceres, they do some captures, and it's made clear that some of the female people that have been captured by Titus's faction are abused, let's say, to put it very lightly. And that kind of enrages Cassius and Darrow, and they make a point that they need to take him down. And so they form a tentative alliance with Antonia. And they do, I don't remember exactly how this happens, but they do manage to essentially they tentative alliance with Antonia, and then they also make a deal with House Minerva, sort of. Because House Minerva was the one with the horses. And this is where the girl Mustang comes in. She's one of the other prominent... She's the head of the House Minerva, the leader of their
and also
faction.
One other main character who is awesome.
Pax.
Pax
au Telemanos.
Yes.
I'll get to him, because he becomes epic in one of the fights later. I don't want to get to him just yet, though.
Okay.
Anyway, so stuff happens. I don't remember exactly how the chain of events goes. It's been a bit now. And this is always the issue with me on audiobooks. If I read a book, I typically remember things very clearly and very vividly. But if I listen to a book, I'm a lot less likely to remember the fine details. So they managed to retake the place, and they have a big fight. I actually think this happens before they take down Titus, but they have a big fight with House Minerva, and this is where the character Blue's talking about comes in. A guy who's described as much larger than Titus. is like riding beside Mustang, the woman who is leading House Minerva, and he's just described as just his arms are described as instead of having muscles, it looks like he has two boulders under his skin. So he's described as this giant man, like he's essentially riding a warhorse, and it looks like a pony underneath him. And he has this habit of whenever he charges into battle, he just shouts his own name. Like just Pax au Telemanus! Pax au Telemanus! And at one point in the fight, like, he grabs Darrow and is like trying to squeeze him to death. And Darrow, like, with nothing else to do, just starts kneeing him as hard as he can in the balls.
Yeah.
And that's how he manages to take him down. And there's a funny exchange later on when they have another conflict where he's like, when he's like, you can hear him calling out from inside the fortress, and Darrow's taunting him. He's like, "Was that a woman's voice I heard? My goodman, did something happen to your balls?" Oh, yeah. There's some good.
Pax is a babe.
Oh, he's a fucking awesome character. Like, he's an absolutely awesome character. So they managed to eventually take down Titus, and Cassius and Darrow established themselves as the de facto leaders, with Darrow being the leader of leaders, and Cassius begrudgingly being his second, although he doesn't like it.
And Severo establishing himself as a psychotic little monkey.
Yes.
Who's very clever and very lethal.
So that was the other thing. There's another little subfaction, the lower drafts, the kind of less prominent golds, like Severo and a couple of the other ones. They establish their own little. They essentially become Darrow's special ops folks, called they call themselves the Howlers, because they wear wolf cloaks and they howl as they go into battle.
And they're trained by Severo.
Yeah, and they're absolutely insane. Like, there's one battle where they hide inside the bodies of horses to do an ambush.
Well, that was while Pax was fighting Darrow.
It was, yeah.
And then at the end of the fight, Darrow howls, and all the people who just lost the fight were like, what the fuck's he doing? And then suddenly all around them.
Yeah, they jump out of the corpses of horses. They were just hiding in the horse corpses all night, and then they take the castle. That's how they eventually beat House Minerva. And I was going to get to that, because that happens after what I was about to say, which is Titus. This was the issue. Titus, when they finally do take him and take him down, they feel the need to mete out justice, because, you know, it's not. They're trying to. They make a point several times that this game that they're playing, the Institute, is to take the golds and take them through the whole growth of civilization. Like, they're in the Dark Ages, and then they are making their way up to a feudal age, and then they're making their way up to a more civilized age, and then they have to develop their own justice system and whatnot. And in the end, Darrow ends up allowing Cassius to duel and kill Titus, because at this point Cassius thinks that Titus is the one that killed his brother.
Also, previously, Cassius, when the bad things were happening to the women, Cassius went to duel Tychus, lost to him, and Tychus pissed on him.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. They beat the shit out of him and then peed on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of piss in this book.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cassius.
Got to it. No, don't start. We were having this. Oh God.
Don't explain.
There's so many things that you can make fun of, or that you can meme in this book. It is a lot more serious, though. So anyway, so Cassius does a duel with him and doesn't finish him honorably. He basically makes it last as long as he can and makes Titus suffer. And it ends up being very ugly, and it looks like just sanctioned vengeance instead of justice, and it kind of it really hurts Darrow's authority as a leader.
Yeah.
And kind of knocks him off the heap.
But also you've gone past the Titus bit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the other thing that he finds out, is that it's made clear that there's very significant differences between the diction of the lower classes and the upper classes. So, for instance, you know, a red would swear by saying bloody hell, and a gold would swear by saying gory hell. And
Bloody Dam and Gory Dam.
Oh, Bloody Dam and Gory Dam. Yeah, thank you. And when he's interrogating Titus to see why he did this, Titus goes off on a rant and then says, just like, he talks about somebody that he knew being abused in a similar way. He's like, they did it first. They all did it first. And Daryl's like, who? And then Titus says something like, it was the Bloody Damn Golds or something like that. And it was at that moment Daryl realized Titus is another one just like him, a red who had been cut and stitched together to look like a gold. And that's why he was just so callous and eager to kill everyone, because he sees all the golds as an enemy.
Yeah.
And he realizes this is what they were worried that Darrow would become. They wanted him not to be an instrument of pure vengeance, but a true infiltrator. Somebody who would think. And Titus is what the opposite of that is. Somebody who is just basically a blunt instrument. Somebody who's just out for revenge. And so that's one of the other reasons that Darrow decides to kill him. Because otherwise, there's a chance that he might be discovered.
What's our time on the clock, by the way, right now?
We're at 20 minutes in.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, no worries.
So they do eventually take... they don't end up taking House Minerva out. Well, they do take the house. They take most of the people, and they take the castle. But they don't take the leader. She gets away with the standard, Mustang. And despite trying to track her down, they aren't actually able to do that.
Also, they capture Pax.
They do capture Pax, yes. Pax all Telemanos. I'm sorry, I just love that. I love the idea of just this giant hulk of a man shouting his own name as he charges into combat.
Yeah, it's very Leroy,
Yeah, Leroy Jenkins. He's the Leroy Jenkins of the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that happens. Again, they start to become a legitimate superpower. They have taken down at least two houses, because they also, to take down that house, they used House Diana, or not used them, but allied with them. But House Diana betrayed them, and so they took down House Diana too. So they've taken down two houses. They have a bunch of slaves. They haven't lost too many of their own people. And aside from, they have the Diana standard, but they don't have the Minerva standard because the leader got away with it.
Yeah.
Here's where the big twist happens, though, because there's a big rising star in the south and stuff like that. Things are going. They start hearing rumblings from the northern part of the battlefield of
the Jackal.
The Jackal, yes. Another prominent figure to rival the Reaper, as Darrow is being called. Now, this is where things get real, though. A emissary from the Jackal comes down and gives Cassius a disc, like a hollow, and says, "Oh, you'll need to look at this." And Darrow gets worried because he's like, "Oh shit, that might be something that's going to turn him against me or reveal me or something like that, or reveal that I killed his brother." And so he asks Severo, the leader of the Howlers, to try and steal it off him. Anyway, so they go through, and eventually they do whatever mission they were going to do. When Cassius comes back, he calls Darrow out and rides him out to the middle of nowhere. And Darrow realizes, oh shit, he watches it, he knows. He's bringing him out somewhere to duel him, essentially. And sure enough, he said, "Oh, I didn't even need to watch it. I wasn't going to watch it until Severo tried to steal it from me. Then I knew I had to." And he makes a point of that it's not. He says, many people became an animal when they came in here, but he's like, after watching that video, I saw that you were an animal before you came in here. The way you killed my brother, because he was completely formless, just flailing around like a gorilla. Essentially. Yeah. So Cassius duels him and kicks his ass.
Leaves him for dead.
Darrow ends up getting saved by Mustang, the woman that was the head of House Minerva that he let get away. And so she nurses him back to health. The two of them have like a little budding thing, a romance almost.
Yeah, it's a couple of people come to the camp because they're in like a forest because they're basically both exiles. And while Darrow's out, a couple of I can't remember what house it is.
They were
do some...
Oathbreakers, people who were captured and ran away.
Right. Yeah, they were going to do some bad things to Mustang.
Yeah.
So they tied him to a tree or something? I can't remember.
Did.
It was pretty bad.
They tied him to the tree and left him there, and then did something to allow them to be found. Like they lit a flare or something like that, or they did something. Anyway, so they make their way out, and they manage to survive. Darrow, in the meantime, the proctor of House Mars comes down and talks to him at one point. Mustang has gotten sick, and Darrow's out trying to find something to help her, and realizes he's being followed by someone who's cloaked, and it turns out it was the proctor of House Mars, the guy who's in charge of their house. And so he talks to him for a while, and it's through this conversation that Darrow learns that the game is fixed. The Jackal is the son of the arch-governor of Mars, so the head of the whole planet, and he's essentially paid off the proctors to let his son win, or fix it so his son wins. Yeah. And so he's getting special treatment, special equipment, and because Darrow was rising in the ranks so fast, that's why the Hollow was given to Cassius to turn him against him. So that happens, and he manages to, like, the one guy's like, yeah, people have seen this, people will offer you apprenticeship, you'll have a nice position after this, don't worry about it, don't throw your life away. And Darrow has the exact opposite reaction. He's like, no, fuck that. I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this my way. And he talks the guy into giving him antibiotics for Mustang and comes up with a new plan for how they're going to win. And essentially what they do is him and Mustang go around and defeat and take all of the... like, they find a bunch of Oathbreakers, people who have had the slave mark put on and then decided to say fuck it and run away. This isn't worth it. And so what they do is they beat them and then take their marks, put a mark on, and then take the mark off, essentially freeing them. And so they end up building a ragtag like army out of people who have run away, basically the dregs of the dregs.
Yeah.
And they start doing like guerrilla warfare. Like they wear like white wolf cloaks and hide in the snow and ambush people and keep taking more slaves and freeing them and adding them to the army. And by doing this, Darrow's building up this huge ragtag militia of like highly skilled guerrilla warriors. And it culminates in one of my favorite scenes where they free Pax through a trap near House Mars, and Pax, as soon as he's freed, just goes happily swinging haymakers at the people around him.
And he's not even mad at Darrow for like losing his testicles to him.
Like the moment that he's freed and he realizes that Darrow is now helping Mustang, he just gives him a big hug and he's like, "Oh yeah, good man, let's go."
Reaper.
The guy is so awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it goes on, and they manage to take a few houses and then move north. Like they've got a fairly sizable force now, and his plan is, because he finds out the proctors have to leave when their house is gone, eliminated, and he finds out that the two houses that are arrayed against him are Jupiter and there's one other one that I'm forgetting. Jupiter and one other one. But they're both in the north.
Yeah.
And so he heads up there with his ragtag group, which is becoming a very serious threat at this point. And they manage to take down one house altogether. Like, just wipe it off through, like, harrowing attacks. And they're getting more and more harassment now from the proctors, who are, like, one of them sicks a bear on Darrow. One of them,
and not like a normal bear, like
a hybrid, like, mutant bear. Yeah.
Yeah. All the animals in this entire, like, area have been created by sculptors. They aren't natural animals.
Yeah, they're all genetically engineered.
Mm.
So anyway, so he manages to get away, and despite the harassment from the proctors, they manage to get through. The Howlers rejoin them. Severo, who they had been left behind
Thought he
with
was
House.
dead.
Yeah, they thought he was dead, but it turns out he comes back and saves Darrow from the bear.
No, I mean, Severo thought Darrow was dead.
Severo thought Darrow, and actually, it's revealed that once Cassius came back and said, "Oh yeah, Darrow was killed by House Ceres or something like that." No one believed him, and half the people left Mars. Not half of them, but a good chunk of the most loyal people to Darrow left, including the Howlers. And so they came north, and now now he's got his elite special forces back. So they pull off a trick against the proctors and manage to Severo and the Howlers go through like a latrine pit to make it into the castle, and they take the one house, not Jupiter, but the other one that was against them.
I can't remember the names very well.
Yeah, so they take it over, and now he owns that house, and then they move against Jupiter as quickly as possible so that they don't have time to stop him.
Mm. Is that the one that's the empty castle?
No.
Or I say empty, I mean.
No, that's the next one is the empty castle.
Okay.
So then they make it to the House Jupiter, which is mostly unoccupied because they say there's a siege going on against another castle off to the west of it or whatever. And there's only this small guy with kind of like a scrawny guy, ill-fitting ring, and they're like, yeah, just okay, well, whatever. He agrees to surrender the castle to them. It's just like the only condition is you don't enslave us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they agree. And they decide to do. Oh, it was House Bacchus.
Right.
That was not the one I took before, I think, because they have like barrels of what they thought was wine, but it's actually just grape juice. And this is used in a trick. So he suspects this scrawny guy that surrendered the castle, and so they do a ploy of everyone getting drunk on grape juice and
pretending to get drunk,
try and trick him, and because he realized this guy who's pretending to be from House Jupiter is actually the Jackal from House Pluto, who is the arch guy's son, governor's son. And so what he does is like he does something that he thinks is going to make him surrender. Like he stabs the guy's hand, and he's like, he's like, you can walk out of here unconditionally if you just chop your own hand off. And thinking that he'd never do it. And he does it.
Because the Jackal is named... Well, do you want to explain why the Jackal is called the Jackal?
Yeah, because he early on in the Institute game, he was trapped in a cave with most of his other house. And they had no food but plenty of water. So they ended up eating each other to get out. And a jackal will notoriously chew its own limb off to get out of a trap.
Yeah, and that's why when Darrow pins his hand to the table, he's like, "You're a jackal. If you're really what you say you are, you will cut off your own hand, and then we'll let you walk away."
And then he does, and he's like, "You see, a true Gold's power is not in his strength, but in his mind. What use do I have for a hand?" And then he cuts his own hand off, and Darrow realizes his mistake, like, "Oh shit, I should have just killed this guy. Like, I shouldn't have let it go this far." And at which point, one of the proctors flies through the room, throws like a flashbang grenade in, or drops one, and then the Jackal picks it up, throws it, and goes to stab Darrow. Pax jumps over him to defend him, and the Jackal just shanks the fuck out of Pax and kills him.
Yeah, and then escapes.
At which point, Darrow flies into an absolute rage. And he had... Oh, sorry, I skipped over a bit. The Proctor of House Mars comes to warn him again that this is a bad idea, at which point Darrow tricks him, stuns him, knocks him out, and steals his grav boots, which are like these, basically, think like jet boots.
Does he get his razor as well?
He doesn't get his razor, but he does get that finger ring back that he got as a gift. It's a ring that has an extendo blade in it.
Oh, yeah.
And so Darrow goes chasing after the guy who dropped the grenade, one of the proctors, the proctor of House... I want to say it was House Jupiter?
I think it was Jupiter, yeah.
Anyway, so he chases him down, and just in a fit of rage, like, manages to get up close, tackle him, get underneath his shield, and, like, stick the blade right through his, like, the eye slit in his armor, and, like, twist and kill the guy. At which point,
while they were like hovering in the air above a mountain.
yeah, exactly. It was like, and it was like, I in my mind when I was listening, I was picturing it in the middle of a storm too, just because it would have been even more of a metal scene.
Yeah, and so they could take his grab boots.
And they use that to essentially storm Olympus. So Darrow's like, fuck this, we're not playing your games anymore. And he takes his whole army up to Olympus, and they go room by room and just, like, take people out. They're like, they take down the proctors. The ones that won't surrender, they kill. The ones that will or that are defeated, they knock out and tie up and stuff. A few of them are really good-natured about it, too. Like, the Mercury one is like, oh, look at this.
That's the crazy guy, isn't it?
The Mercury guy is the happy guy that almost recruited him in the beginning. Yeah, and he's just jolly about the whole thing.
But he still fights him.
He still fights him, and Darrow's like, I can't risk you actually being better than me. And then he just shoots him in the chest with a stun gun, and then ties him up. And it's funny, because even after he shoots him in the chest with a stun gun, the guy's on the ground, like, in pain, laughing, and he's just like, oh, I didn't see that one coming. It's just still very good-natured about the whole thing.
And the gods weren't expecting that. Like, there was two of them, I think, they were like, just finished having sex or something, and they come into the room and they're like,
it was one of the female proctors. She was just like, she had just had a bath. She was laying in a bathrobe with a glass of wine, just watching some footage or something like that. And it's heavily implied that she was banging the guy that he just killed, the Jupiter Proctor.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they take Olympus, and then he sends Mustang off to take down the Jackal. And it's at this point that the Mars Proctor, the guy that he had tied up, and the guy that had been kind of reluctantly helping him up until this point, and who had let him know about the bribery and the corruption and how the game was fixed, reveals to him that Mustang is actually the twin sister of the Jackal, the guy who had escaped, and the guy who was the Archduke's son. And he goes like, oh shit, she's going to betray me, and then they're going to come back against me with an army. And so he flies down, breaks the siege on House Mars that was happening, frees some people, meets back up with Cassius, who is like haggard and like worn, and all his old friends who were still with House Mars greet him, Roke being one of them, who's barely a skeleton of a man at this point, and just hugs him and like, oh, it's so good to see you again, Darrow. Cassius, on the other hand, is like,
gives up.
He's become like a bitter old man at this point. But before he gives up and leaves, he like sucks some blood off of a scab on his hand and then spits it in Darrow's face, and then says like, you know, after what you did, know that this is a blood feud. Don't think that you can ever be in a room with me and breathe the same air as me and not have it end with yours or my death or something like that. And so it's just like, and Darrow's like taken aback at the pure venom in his voice. And finally, as they're leaving, they get back to Olympus and they're trying to, like, he went down to Mars to try and recruit an army to fight against the army he thinks Mustang is going to bring against him. And then what does she come back with? Her twin brother, bound and gagged, and just tosses him on the ground. She's like, hey, I got him.
Yeah, naked.
Yeah. And so,
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, they do make a point though in the book that like golds are supposed to be above nudity. They don't see a problem with it. They don't care.
True.
They're too far above such petulant mortal things.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so that ends it. He won the game, and for the first time in history, the students took Olympus, and so he becomes like an instant celebrity.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry.
The several in the audio logs.
Yep, good point. So there's a point where like all of the rings they're wearing all contain nano cameras and microphones. There's cameras all throughout the arena, so this is all being watched and recorded. The way that the proctors were able to cheat is they can edit the footage before they send it out to the rest of the solar system.
Yeah, because the solar system's all watching everything that has happened.
Yeah. It's like it's a very Hunger Games-esque sort of thing. And the reason they watch is they're looking for potential students, people that they might want to take on as an apprentice or something like that, and bring into their household. So he realizes that there's a couple different things that they'll need to edit out. So he asks Severo to go in there take the footage, trim it down, edit it, and basically tell the story they want to be told about how they were wronged and now they're the victors and stuff like that. They were only, fighting back against people who were trying to cheat them out of their rightful victory. And so Severo goes in there and he does that editing. And in the meantime, while that's happening, the people who are in charge of the tournament, or I say tournament, the institute, the game, they all show up with a big coterie of people. The arch-governor of Mars is there, the guy whose son is now naked, bound, and gagged on the floor. He shows up along with a coterie of the highest nobility, and they all kind of chat and talk with each other. And the funny thing is, Darrow was thinking he was in trouble, but they don't seem to give a shit about the proctors he killed. It's just, the Golds are very much Darwinian, survival of the fittest, like, if they weren't strong enough to beat a student, then they should deserve to die. Like, that sort of thing. Anyway, Severo comes back out, and he says something very ominous that kind of implies that he might suspect what Darrow is, but nothing overt. Because when Darrow killed the Jupiter Proctor, that fit of passion when they're fighting over the mountain in the sky, he shouts, he shouts "bloody damn" at one point. Again, that being set up as something that Golds just don't say. It's a very weird turn of phrase. In fact, even Darrow's name is not a typical name for a Gold, but he wanted to keep it when they changed him. And so everyone always comments, "Darrow, that's a very off-color name." Anyway, so all of this happens, and the Arch-Governor of Mars kind of has a quiet word with Darrow and offers him the chance to join his household just in exchange for don't say anything about this. Don't say anything about the bribery and the everything like that. And this works for Darrow, because Darrow's like, he needs to gain power and gain prominence in society so that he can achieve his mission of taking down...
Just a reminder, this is the man who sacrificed his wife to death.
Yes, this is the same man that condemned his wife to hang and watched her hang. And was very cold and callous about it. And this is a really good point about Darrow's character, is that he is willing to essentially bend the knee even to people who he loathes, who killed his wife, like the only reason for living, destroyed his life as a Red. And he's willing to do that just to like achieve his greater, like he's got an eye on the end game, and he's not going to let him, aside from a few fits of stupidity, like he's got his eye on the long game. And that I love him as a character for that. So, anyway, and that's where the first book ends. With him joining, what was it? Augustus I've
got Fabii in my mind now, but I know it's not.
Is it Arcos?
Alun? No, not Alun.
No, Alun is the Sovereign's family.
Yeah. God, I've forgotten. It's been too long. But also, House Bologna is there.
Yeah, House Bologna, and it's established that Cassius's House Bologna, they are bitter rivals with the Arch-Governor's family. Like, bitter rivals. Like, if there's any chance we can get to kill your family, we're gonna do it.
Especially because they all know that he killed Julian, and Julian was like their mother's favorite child.
He was like the sweet younger brother that everyone loved and doted on.
Yeah. And the Bolognas have like a whole bunch of brothers and sisters. Like, it's a big family.
Yeah.
They have even more reason to hate Darrow, and they're just kind of glaring at him in that ceremony.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of the first book. We are pretty far over on time, but I do want to have just a quick like discussion of the book as a whole. So this is going to be a long podcast. If you stuck around this long, hopefully you enjoyed it. But yeah. So thoughts.
Fantastic fucking book.
I agree with that. I wouldn't have finished it in a week if I didn't think that.
That's very obvious based on the fact that we've talked about it for like over an hour now total. Almost 2 hours probably over the two podcasts.
So I obviously listened to it in audiobook format, and a lot of the scenes where Darrow was putting together his guerrilla force and like, you know, the battles that they were going through on that, I was listening to like while I was running, and I was finding myself setting like a better running pace just because I'm like, oh man, I'm getting amped just listening to this.
Yeah, like and all so Severo and his group are just they're one of the coolest things. So the they were like the worst scorers in their team. Severo was like bottom 5% of the people in the exam. He only got through because he murdered the top guy in a ruthless fashion.
Yeah.
And yeah, Severo's so like fucking insane in the eyes of all the other golds. He like hunted wolves. He wore their pelts. He took on animalistic characterizations, and because he was like half the size of the other golds.
Yeah, sure. It's made clear that like the high golds, the really the high tier golds, they're like well over like 2 meters tall.
Yeah.
So like for the American audience out there, like 2 meters is like that's over 7 feet tall. That's
6'6".
Is it 6'6"?
Yeah, because I'm 195 centimeters.
Huh.
Yeah,
I honestly thought it was taller than that.
I'm 6'5".
I don't know. I always thought it was taller than that. But yeah, but essentially they're all the high tier golds at least are pushing 7 feet tall. So big, well muscled, extremely tall. Severo is just a mere like I don't know, 5'11", 6 feet. Like
still a lot bigger than Darrow when he was a red.
They make a point at one point in the second book that Severo, like Darrow realizes that he thinks of Severo as short, but he's like he would have towered over me as a red.
And all his followers are equally like they have like comical names. Like was it Shitbag or something? Was one of them?
Yeah, Severo is referred to as Goblin.
Yes, that's true. And all of the Howlers have these like shitty names.
Yeah,
kind of poking fun at their features.
But it's kind of part of their character. They're like the low of the low, and they fight dirty. Like that's their thing. And later on in the books, once they actually get out into the world, they become Darrow's actual special forces.
Yes, and they grow a bond that you don't really see from any of the other characters. Like it's a very not gold thing.
Yeah. Well, and they make a point over and over in the book that what Darrow did by assembling a militia from different houses of free people and not slaves was very weird. Like it just wasn't done.
Yeah.
And he like inspired loyalty that way.
Because he gave people an opportunity to earn their honor back, and so a lot of people were going for that.
My God, man, you're gonna take his gory damn head off.
But yeah, so there's I think 4 or 5 books out at the moment. I kind of consider it the first trilogy, and then the stuff that comes after, because it tends to be it's a good way of breaking down the thing. So I don't know. Maybe in a month's time, we might talk about
the second book,
Golden Sun. Yeah,
that's the one I'm on right now. And again, I'm halfway through it. I'm enjoying it so far. I did hit a point where I was like, oh God, I was doubting. I was having some doubts as to whether I was going to enjoy it. And then Darrow came back, my man.
Yeah. And it goes after the first book. So the first book's all kind of confined to either it's basically confined to Mars, but from the second book onwards it like expands vastly.
So far, like in the second book, it's what happens after that. They're into wider society. It's interplanetary. They've already been to like Mars, the moon, Ganymede.
Stones.
Yeah, they're all over the solar system.
Battle cruisers. Anyway, that's just a spoiler for a month's time, I guess.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's not drag this on too long. We're at at the end. I think there's no need to really say anything. I think we both thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, you obviously enjoyed the book because you were pestering me to read it for so long, and for good reason.
I've read it many times.
Yeah, I have books like that I've reread quite a bit. All right. let's call it an end. This has been an extremely long episode of the TMCJ podcast, episode 47. Hopefully you enjoyed listening, and hopefully you'll tune in again soon.
We'll see you next week for a quiz.